Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Generational Dr. Wealth Show, a personal finance show for doctors. And we have a special gift for you all out there. For the next 2 episodes, we are going to be hopping into the keynote speech that we delivered at the Hinman Dental Conference. And at the Hinman, we talked about step number 1 through 9 of the Doctor's Blueprint to Financial Freedom, as well as key statistics for doctors to keep in mind as we continue to build not only our financial future, but our financial foundation. I hope you all enjoy.
Let's start with a question. When do we think the average American retires? What age in our minds? 67? Close. 62 years old. Now, when do we think the average dentist retires? Everybody went pretty high on that. So not less time, more time? The average dentist retires at 69 years old. So the average American at 62, and then the average dentist at 69. Let's think about that, but let's bring it into perspective. How much more in income do you think a dentist makes compared to the average American? 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, what do we think? 100 times. 100 times? Well, if so, God bless. On average, 3 to 4 times more than the average American. So how do we make 3 times more, but then we retire 7 years later? Is that okay with you? After everything you put into this career, after everything you give your patients, 7 years later, we have to change that. We have to figure out what exactly do we need to do to make sure we are where we need to be when that fateful day comes. Because eventually everybody will put that handpiece down one day. The question is, will you be putting it down or will you be taking it out of your hands? That's the question. My name is Jermaine Affetti. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. And as already said, I went to East Carolina for my Master's of Business Administration. And since that time, went on to UNC Dental School to be able to enjoy and fulfill my dream of becoming a dentist. And since that time, I've been practicing, and I'm going to get a little bit into the history of where I went to right after dental school, but it was a very untraditional path, I would say. I've worked in over 100 different cities in my time, but we're going to get into that. When you think of average, what kind of emotions does that elicit? If I said, you're pretty average. Most people are like, me, average? No way. We need to change the way we think about average because for practitioners, we tend to be drivers. A lot of us, we have our foot on the pedal of that car and we're going at full speed. The question is, where are we going? A lot of us drive a car with no GPS set. We don't have a destination in mind. We're just pushing, and hopefully, if I work hard enough, everything else is going to work itself out. I'm here to tell you, when you're driving a fast car, you need to know where it's going. You need to know how much gas is in that tank. You need to know, do you have a passenger seat driver that you can switch with? You need to know everything about that vehicle because when you're in dentistry, you are driving a Ferrari of a career. The question is, do you know how to wield that machine? That brings us to average. Because the way we think about average has been a little bit off. Because if you're in this room, you are in the top 90 to 95th percentile by nature. Right? You don't stumble into this room. When you go your entire life being that highest percentile, it's kind of hard to think to yourself, you know what? Maybe I'm not 95th percentile in every area of my life. Has anybody ever heard the quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to change your room? That's why we need to reframe the way we think about average. We need to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions. So then when we're in those rooms, we can figure out how can we get to the higher level instead of just being the highest in your room. That brings us to the 50% theory. My mother told me about this theory and it was a lot to take in. And basically it summarizes that if you can be in the 50th percentile in 3 skill sets, you are technically in the 95th percentile. See, a lot of us think about, oh, I'm just average in this particular area. If you're consistent in 3 areas, any 3 complementary areas, you are technically in a 95th or higher percentile in the area. Has anybody ever heard of LeBron James? LeBron James is not the best shooter, not the best passer, not the most athletic player that the NBA has ever seen. Yet, he is the highest scoring player the NBA has ever seen. He combined different skill sets to put him into a rare air. And that's how I like to think about it. How can I combine skill sets to put myself into a higher echelon? Anybody ever thought about why is the lion the king of the jungle? It's not the tallest, right? It's not the fastest, that's the cheetah. It's not the biggest elephant, right? Yet it is the king of the jungle. Because the lion has found a way to combine its assets to put itself on top of the food chain. The question is, what assets do you already have within you that you can put together to put you on top of your own life food chain?
If you've been listening to the show, you probably heard us talk about the doctor's blueprint, the 9-step framework that helps doctors go from 6-figure debt to financial freedom. But a lot of listeners have asked the same question. How do I apply this to my own situation? That's exactly why we created the Dr. Wealth Blueprint Plan. It's a personalized financial roadmap designed specifically for doctors. We walk through your entire financial picture, your debt, insurance coverage, saving strategies, investment plan, and long-term goals. And then turn it into a clear step-by-step plan based on the doctor's blueprint. If you're interested, just text the word blueprint to 704-336-9313, and we'll send you the details and application. Again, that's blueprint to 704-336-9313 to learn more about the Dr. Wealth Blueprint Plan.
That brings us to the next level. My mother challenged me. She said, you know what? These 4 areas, forget 3, we're going to take it to 4. You're going to go 99th percentile. These are the 4 areas you have to succeed in, or I don't want to hear anything about anything else. So she challenged me. Number 1, you cannot succeed in dentistry if it costs your family. And I said, you know what? How can I make sure that doesn't happen? Because I know I want to work a lot. How is that going to happen? So I married a hygienist. So at the very least, we're going to work and we're going to work together, all right? So that's a check mark on that part at least. Now, number 2, finances. That's why I got my MBA. So now we have the first 2 check. Now it starts to get a little bit tougher. Fitness. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to make sure I live an active life. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I live a nice, full, healthy lifestyle. And on my birthday, March 12th, 2020, I was riding my bike back to physics class and got hit by a bus. Hit by a bus. And isn't that how life works sometimes? You can do everything in your power to do the right thing, but some things are out of your control. Thank God it wasn't a massive accident, but it did affect my disability coverage for a few years because everything that hits that medical history affects it. So going through that, I still make sure, okay, I need to keep this together. And from there, again, it's going to be a challenge. Some days are going to be better than others. Last but not least, faith. I don't want to hit every level that I want to achieve and sacrifice everything that I hold dear. And for each and every one of you here, there's something that you believe in, whatever it is. Don't lose yourself in the process of getting to where you want to get to. This is my personal mentor, Dr. Mark Hinman. And this was our graduation day. And as I was reflecting, trying to figure out what exactly am I going to do after dental school, I remember talking to, again, my amazing counselor of a mother, and I told her, when I graduate, I'm going to go straight into practice ownership. I already have my MBA. Let's do this thing. Let's rock and roll. And of course, I looked on to her. She looked back at me, and she wasn't smiling. She said, absolutely not. And I'm like, Mom, what do you mean, absolutely not? I have my MBA. I have my dental degree. Let's do this thing. And the beauty of wisdom is that they can see what you can't see. And she said, you need to get more experience. To serve your patients best, your experience is going to go a long way as you go deeper and deeper into your career. So I said, okay, I need to formulate a plan. How do I get as much knowledge in my brain as possible to be able to hit the levels that I wanted to hit? So I came up with a plan. I actually talked to my brother. He's a CPA. And I said, you know what? I want to become a travel dentist. What exactly does that look like on a 1099? I don't understand all this stuff. We didn't learn that stuff in business school, weirdly enough. We learned everything else but tax stuff. And then they said, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to go ahead and figure out your practice, and then you need to figure out what you make on the road and find a way to funnel what you're making into your 1099 into your practice. And for that entire 2-year span, I paid no taxes. And that's what happens when you have synergy in your life and your finances. They should be working hand in hand, because when they're working hand in hand, you'll start to see the kind of outcomes that no one else could possibly see. So as we reached graduation day, the first thing I did before graduation was I signed 2 travel contracts. And I was traveling between 2 different practices. And I quickly learned I like this. I don't want to be in just Charlotte, North Carolina. I became duly licensed in North and South Carolina, and I decided I wanted to go to the most remote areas of the most remote areas. I want to go where no other dentist is. I want to go to the counties that I'm the only dentist in the county. I want to go where I'm needed the most. And after 100+ cities, I've traveled as far up north in North Carolina as far down in South Carolina and served over 80 different nursing homes, 100 different cities. It was an absolute blast, and I loved it. And as I'm going through the process, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm actually starting to enjoy this. Practice ownership, whenever it comes, it comes. And sometimes you can get a little comfortable. And you can tell yourself, you know what? Where I'm at is a really good place. And as I was just getting to a point of comfortability, that's when I finally got the call. Been working with brokers for years, asking them, you know what? I want to practice, because I started asking even before dental school, like was concluded. I need to practice in Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. My parents lived there, her parents lived there. And when I finally got the call, they told me, we found the practice for you. And I knew, finally, this is the moment. I'm going to realize all my dreams. I'm going to get the practice. I already have the experience. I have the knowledge. I'm ready to serve my patients. And what came my way was not what I expected. It was honestly a letdown. It was a letdown. Now, this is an actual practice, but this is what it felt like. It felt completely abandoned. It felt neglected. And I thought to myself, I am in for a treat. I was excited. Everybody around me was like, this is an abandoned practice. What are you going to do with this thing? And I said, all I need is 4 walls. All I need is 4 walls to make my dreams come true. So when they gave me that practice, they told me this is what it is. I said, let's absolutely do it. And again, back to good mentorship. Right before we were about to close, I spoke to my mentor, Dr. Mark Hinman, and I asked him, what do you think about this? Give me some feedback. And he told me one piece of information that changed the entire financial trajectory of our family. He asked, do they have charts? And I thought to myself, charts? I don't think about charts. I want the building. All I care about is the real estate. So I ended up asking, do they have charts? And they said, absolutely, yes, there are charts. They're up for sale if you want them. He didn't know what to do with them. The state of North Carolina has to be maintained for 10+ years, even after he retires. So I said, okay, let's purchase the charts. So I offered them $4,000 for 6,000 charts. And he said yes. They were inactive charts. They didn't promise if anything will come of this. I said, you know, at the very least, $4,000. If it works out, fantastic. If not, it was a vacation. That's how I thought about it. I have nothing to lose here. So we went all in. I set my eyes on that one goal. And that brings us back to average. I thought to myself, I don't necessarily need to be 95th percentile in my first year. How do I just hit the 50th percentile of all dentists nationwide? Because a lot of us like to skip average on our pursuit to excellence, but not understanding it's a stepping stone. So a lot of us need to identify where do we want to go and what steps are in between. You don't have to jump across the entire lake. How do you just get to a solid footing? What's the next step for you? So that was our goal. How do we become ADA average in our first year? Because if we do that, that is tremendous. Because when it comes to startups do about $350,000 to $450,000 in their first year. So if we hit that, we're in rare air. And that's when it comes back to, you need to change your target. If my target was be an average startup, then I would have got the average startup outcomes. But instead, I raised where I was shooting for, which was the entire ADA. So after the first year of full ownership, we actually surpassed that goal. We had 800,000 in the first year. And I just remember sitting down looking at the numbers and I was like, everything we planned has come true and we actually superseded it. Now, if I would have set my goal to be a 1% practice in my first year, that wouldn't have turned out well and I probably wouldn't have been discouraged. But instead, setting an attainable goal changed the way I thought about everything. So once we hit the $800,000, it all made sense. This was our grand opening, and it was just beautiful having the entire community come out and just show how proud they were of this accomplishment. This was the first dental practice our community has opened up, and it was just beautiful to see everybody's faces and to look at my parents' faces and say, you know what, you did it. And I finally looked over at my mom and I said, are you happy now? And she said, give me a grandchild and we'll talk. You can never make everybody happy, but again, It's good to have those people who keep pushing you. It's good to have cheerleaders, don't get me wrong, but it's also nice to have contrarians that keep you grounded as well. This is why I like to think to myself, I need to stop avoiding average. I need to actually use average as fuel to get to where I want to go. Because if I can now change the way I think about average, I can start leveraging it as a benchmark to get to where I want to go. So the question is for each of us here, what area are you trying to grow in? If you hear it, then finances is obviously important to you. So now you got to think to yourself, where am I trying to go in my financial life? We're going to go through a few steps on how to raise your average. Step number one, just like we talked about when it comes to this car, have you put the final destination into that GPS? Where are you trying to get to? Is it retirement at age 69? Is it retirement at age 55? Or more importantly, do you want to be independent of dentistry by age 55? And practice because you love it, not because you have to. Because the ability to practice because you want to changes the way you think about dentistry. I remember when my mentors told me that once you get into a solid financial place, the way you see patients change. What's an MOD stays an MOD. It doesn't become a crown. What is borderline gingivitis cleaning doesn't turn into SRP. And that's why it is incumbent on our patients need us to be financially free. Because when we are financially free, we provide the best dentistry for our patients. Let me ask you this. If you were going to an orthopedic surgeon, would you hope that your orthopedic surgeon was financially free? Or would he say, replace everything? So think about that. There's a reason that patients are afraid to come to the dentist. They don't know if, just like going to the mechanic, do I need an oil change or do I need a whole new car? I don't know. Because I can't read the x-rays. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna trust this person. And that's why Google reviews are so important to them. They need to know, can I trust this person? Because I don't know apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So it's incumbent on us to put ourselves into a good financial place so we can make the best decisions for our patients. So this isn't a financial talk. This is honestly, more clinical than we actually think it is. Number two, you wanna identify your target. Where exactly do you wanna go? We're actually gonna go through an easy target later on in this presentation that gives you a nice, simple target to hit, and if you hit it, it will change your entire life. Number three, compound consistently. As we said, you don't have to be 95th percentile in everything, but if you can find a few areas that you're gonna do consistently, just compounding those habits is literally gonna change your entire area. Number four, measure your progress. If you don't know where you're going, and you don't know how much progress you're making, you're gonna be in a very tough place. So that's why it's important for you, as you're here today, before you leave Hinman, take a moment to think to yourself, what exactly do I want? You came here for a reason. You left your practices, you left your homes, you left your loved ones to come here. What do you want out of this weekend? How do you know if this weekend was a success? Your time is very valuable. So if you came here, you need to figure out what exactly do I need out of this conference this weekend for this to be a success. This takes us to the paradox. Now, when it comes to our income, the more you make, if it's not in a controlled atmosphere, the more it shackles you. Because the more you make, the more you can spend. When you're in dental school, your lifestyle probably wasn't that expensive. So if I wanted to take maybe a week or two off from dental school, it wouldn't affect too much, but imagine when you're in your practice and you take a few weeks off of your practice, it changes everything. So that's why you want to make sure when it comes to your finances that you handle it in a responsible way. You want to make sure you're handling your finances in a way that it does not shackle you, but it actually frees you. And we're going to go through 9 steps that if you follow these 9 steps, you always know where you are on this path. Am I ahead of where I'm supposed to be? Am I exactly where I'm supposed to be? And you'll know the next step you're shooting for. This brings us to the Dr. Blueprint. On our podcast, we talk about these 9 different steps and we continually hammer them over and over and over. As you can see, it's 3 different levels. Level 1, financial foundation. Level 2, financial framework. Level 3, the finishes and fixtures. And when it comes to this, there's going to be a QR code at the end. If you scan, we'll send you everything, so no worries. But when it comes to this, when you understand these 9 steps, it'll let you know where you are. Because the beautiful thing about making 3 to 4 times more than the average American is that you have more options. And the downside is you have more options. The question is, where do you put your next dollar? One thing I would say is, if you came into $100,000, what would you do with it right now? Think to yourself, what would you do with it? I can guarantee you at least 50% of this room say, I'm gonna put it into savings. And that feels like a safe place, right? Seems like a good thing. But those dollars could be used more effectively. So the question is, where exactly are you on this treadmill? Because once you understand, you'll know where your next dollar is actually supposed to go. You won't invest in stocks before you have insurance. You're gonna make sure you do everything in the proper order. That takes us to our financial foundation. This is, once you get these three in place, you can now move with a lot more freedom. You can feel a lot safer in handling your finances and knowing I'm doing the right thing. See, the reason that a lot of dentists have a hard time when it comes to finances is not because we're not intelligent. You're as smart as it comes. But I'm gonna be frank. You're as smart as it comes. So it's not necessarily an intellect issue, it's that we don't know what to do with the next dollar sometimes. We don't know where it goes, how to handle it. This has to be handled before we even think about investing. Step number one, ensure your foundation. This one is key. When it comes to these three coverages, you're gonna need a lot more. But these are the three foundational ones. When I became a practice owner, I didn't realize how many insurances you actually need. I mean, right now I probably have 15 different policies. But the thing about it is, these three are gonna encompass, they're just basically small variants of these different policies. Number one, you need to make sure you protect your income. Imagine putting all this into your career, setting up an entire lifestyle, and one bad ski weekend ruins everything. That's why it's incumbent to make sure you protect your income. And more importantly, you gotta make sure it keeps up. Because a lot of us got policies when we came out of dental school, or maybe an agent talked to us and we got a little bit more coverage. But I challenge everyone here, when you get home, figure out, are you properly insured? You need 60 to 70% of coverage to make sure you're at least amply covered. So to use quick numbers, if you make $100,000 a year, you need to make sure you at least have $60,000 to $70,000 in replacement of income through a disability policy. If not, again, you might have graduated and you only have $30,000. And you say, yo, a disability check, I have it. Do you have it? So you want to make sure we're properly insured. Next, malpractice insurance. You have to protect your license. Because the longer you can practice, the more options you have. You don't want one bad day to change everything. And when I was talking to a carrier, I remember them telling us, malpractice doesn't cover bad dentists. It covers good dentists in a litigious society. Because you can do everything perfectly fine, and one patient just has it in their mind that you are a terrible dentist. Meanwhile, you have hundreds of Google reviews who said the complete opposite. They are amazing. They are the best dentists I've ever had. You have to come experience this. But this person says, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one that changes this dentist's life. They're so privileged. They got everything going for them. Well, not on my watch. That's why we have to make sure we're properly insured. And more importantly, for whatever kind of skill set you have, you want to make sure that your insurance matches it. If you know you do more advanced procedures, maybe just having general dentistry coverage is not enough. Make sure that your coverage matches what you do clinically. Number three, life insurance. I love term insurance. It's the cheapest way to get yourself covered. I'm sure have you all heard of whole life and all the different kind of policies out there? I say term insurance until you understand it. Again, being a dental practitioner, we hear a lot about all these different products. And like I want to repeat over and over and over, you are as bright as it comes. If you don't understand it, don't invest in it. Simple. If they can't explain to you in 5 minutes what you're investing in, it's probably not for you. Have we all been pitched something that, like, you know what? The end makes sense, but everything in between doesn't. And I've received policies and it just doesn't make sense. So I implore all of us, do not invest in something you do not understand. That's going to be key. Number two, start your freedom fund. This one is key because when you get that 1 month of income, what is an emergency becomes an inconvenience. So if something happens to the car, if a computer dies, to an average American, that could be life-changing. To you, it's like, man, I got to go to the Apple store. I need to figure out what kind of iPad I want to buy. This is absolutely key. This is, before we talk about investing, because a lot of us hop straight into investing, but we don't even have the basics covered. We need liquid cash, at least 1 month of income. It could be in your checkings account, savings account, wherever it is, easily accessible. And I like to say 1 month of income because we usually hear like 1 month of expenses. The thing about it is, if I ask everyone here, how much did you spend last month? Very few people know. But if I ask you how much you made last month, people usually have a pretty good idea of it. That's why I can say 1 month of income. It's nice, it's easy, it's round, it's a round number. It's a number that you own. Number 3, cut the wealth killers. And this is the last step in our foundation, because imagine if you're investing in the stock market and you have a fantastic year. I mean, you have 20% returns, everything is going spectacular. And you have a credit card eating 25%. You're losing money. That's why this is our foundation. Before we even think about investing, before we talk about real estate, before any of that, we have to have the foundation solidified. We have to make sure we're properly insured, that we have some cash set aside in case something comes up, and then we need to make sure we attack our wealth killers with veracity. See, now the thing about it is, right, a lot of us say, you know what, I always get questions, should I pay off my student loans? And the question, and my answer usually is, maybe. I need to know where you are in these steps. Because sometimes we get blanket advice like it applies to everyone when everybody here is different. So it's important for us to understand, where are we on these different steps? Because if you have credit cards that you're paying 20% on, no, I don't want you paying off your 5% student loans. It's not the proper time. Once we get this solidified, this takes us now to our financial framework. These are the studs that hold up your entire financial life. This is the framing of the house here. This is what's honestly going to carry you forward into the future. When you get these 3 right, everything else financially starts to compound and build and grow and grow and grow.
This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be financial, legal, or medical advice. We are not acting as your personal financial advisors. The strategies discussed are general in nature and may not be appropriate for your individual situations. You should always consult your own qualified financial, tax, and legal professionals before making decisions about your money. The host and guests are not responsible for any actions you take based on the information shared on this show.